For Anthony Burgess, A Clockwork Orange was a mixed blessing. Having written over 30 novels spanning decades in a highly prolific career, you would think that his prominence would extend beyond a single short novel he wrote in the middle of his career for monetary reasons, but the 1971 Stanley Kubrick cult film did a lot to bolster his career. It also made a lot of people misinterpret his most memorable work. Parts of A Clockwork Orange are actually based on real events, but not the ones you may think. In 1944, his pregnant wife was walking home when she was raped by a group of young men, prompting her to miscarry and to enter an awful depression that would affect her for the rest of her life. I guess you could say that the dark comedy of the infamous singing in the rain scene from the film takes on a much more somber tone. The novel is separated into 3 parts, each of them detailing a certain mental state that the anti-hero Alex DeLarge is undergoing. His first one is his memorable ultra-violent stage, where he and his droogs, as they are known, beat up old men, fight other gangs, and drink spiked milk in strange bars. The title of the novel actually comes from the manuscript that the old writer is composing when his wife gets raped by the gang members. One thing that Kubrick, and for that matter Burgess, never established is that this is framed in a post-war alternate universe where the Soviets appear to have de facto leadership over Britain. After failing to assert his leadership, the men turn on him, and he gets framed after murdering a starry Petitsa, as he calls her. Suddenly, he is thrown in jail, and while he still kills another inmate, he jumps at the chance to undergo the Ludovico technique, a psychological experiment that'll set him free. However, they make his favorite classical music unbearable when they show undesirable images along with it. In part 3 of the novel, he gets released, but he soon realizes that his parents have replaced him with another lodger, and his former droogs have become cops. They end up beating him up. In desperation, though, he ends up at the author's house, and we find out that his wife has died. Surprisingly, though, friends of the author want to use him as fodder for political means, as they are part of the anti-government party and denounce the crazy experiments they are conducting. A Clockwork Orange is what you can call a dystopian novel. Like 1984 and Brave New World, it speculates a nightmarish society will occur in the future. Like I said before, there's a lot of Russian influence, but the full history is never quite explained. The language of the youth, though, is composed of odd Russian vernacular, and is known as nadsat, the Russian word for teen. Critics have cited James Joyce as a big influence of the book, as his individual character creates a specific language structure that strengthens his perspective, but also alters the reader's perspective as well. When Alex uses such humorous terms, the reader should enjoy it, but then again it should make them a bit unnerved as well. We are dealing with a psychopath here. There's an odd quandary that should trouble the reader of A Clockwork Orange too. There's actually so much that is likable about Alex. As a highly intelligent and well-spoken youth, he represents the creative potential of someone guided by free will. But herein lies the problem. This free will enables him to wander around and terrorize others. Burgess was specifically skeptical about big government, and saw its introduction of psychological control as especially troubling. Do you grant people the freedom to improve themselves? Or are physical and mental imprisonment the only options? Burgess is specifically focusing on the issue of youth culture, and if they are being correctly treated by the older authorities per se. Since there's an inherent distrust in youth at all times, is rebellion just a natural reaction to that? Or does their assertion of individuality merely represent the threatening ingredients of a new generational order? All questions aside, I think this novel is important because it touches upon a lot of pressing issues, the great mastery of language. One thing this novel does well is make fun of elder perceptions of youth. The strange language is akin to the aged looking at hashtags or internet acronyms as completely foreign, but all the while the young understand the appeal of such expressions. A Clockwork Orange posits that perhaps the destructive capabilities of youth, and the governing body that tries to manage it, merely operate in a cyclical and inescapable way, much in the way some prison systems do not reform, but cause more violence. I do have a theory on this book that I have yet to encounter, but I believe it is worth considering. The novel we are reading is of course The Old Man's. The distance he establishes, the fantastical land, the government conspiracies, the dystopia, the odd language, the anti-heroic appeal, are all there as deliberate fictions with which he can properly face the trauma of seeing his wife decline from happiness to death. Art serves the purpose to disguise the ugliness of such a heinous act. In that way, the novel is cyclical. It is clockwork.